Um, Obviously delighted that we open up with a victory, clean sheet. But I think more importantly, the side looked positive, very aggressive and intense from minute one. I remember looking up at the clock at 8.5 minutes gone, and I think we dominated the game. We'd had a great opportunity that the goalkeeper did very well against Jacob one-on-one. But there were many areas and layers of our game today that we've not just been looking at, but trying to reinforce. And I think there were some very nice snapshots of that. Both flanks, especially first half, looked very, very bright and gave a terrific dimension to the game. I actually think it offered Randall some good space and good opportunities to get on the ball, and I thought he was very, very instrumental. But overall, when you look at our performance against a very talented side, a very technically gifted side, there were many, many good performances. Teal led the line incredibly well. And when you look at the back four, offered up few opportunities, and when we were under a little bit of pressure, showed good resilience. So all in all, it's a really good start for us.
Thank you, Coach. We're going to kick it off with Ray.
Gary Nicushin just come in here and said that he didn't feel like they were able to establish their own identity, especially early in the game, and although they made adjustments, couldn't really get a hold of the game even in the second half. What were the keys, you think, from your vantage point on preventing them to do that?
Well, first and foremost, to start the game at home with an energy level that's difficult to deal with. And against a very good footballing side, and they play, it's not a unique system, but it's an awkward system for us in the way that they try to build and some of the angles and options that they try and provide. It doesn't make it easy for you always to get on the front foot, but the guys did a wonderful job of taking on board some information throughout this week in the build-out. So that competitive edge, especially early on, when you're trying to establish a foothold in the game and maybe pull the momentum your way, we did a very good job of that. And I thought that gave us a springboard in the first half to be the more dominant side. We thoroughly deserved a goal, and I'm delighted, obviously, we were able to edge one in before the break. They actually started better than us in the second half, and I think at that point you could see that they were starting to maybe find some of those pockets and gaps and the identity that they're after. And a little bit of fatigue sets in, not as easy to get the pressure on, but all in all, the guys managed that moment well. And if you look at the full picture of the game, we were aggressive to begin with. We found good opportunities and creation within that. When we were under pressure, we showed good fortitude and found enough moments to win the game. So a clean sheet, 2 goals against a side that I would think will be very close to challenging for the Shield again this year and in that top 3 or 4. It's a terrific start and a good result for us.
Yeah, Gary, obviously Jacob had a pretty big impact last year coming in, but it felt like tonight just his ability to threaten for 90 minutes was maybe a little bit different. Do you feel like he's taken a step forward in the offseason, and how important it is to have him and Papa kind of stretching the field like this?
Yeah, I mean, the hope always was that those 2 guys were going to offer the sort of athleticism that really stretches back lines, opens up pockets for other players. I think we saw that in the second half. You know, Hanny coming into the field, I mean, does wonderfully well for Jacob's goal. But the pockets are there, the game stretched, the difficulty they have in dealing with the energy that we threw at the game, I thought opened it up quite nicely for moves like that. For Jacob, the pre-season's been a wonderful time to really bed himself in and form that relationship with Daniel. His movement, his intelligence, his choices of where and when to go beyond and maybe to connect are getting better and better. And I think you'd have to go a long way, and we're gathering as much data as we can on Jacob's workload, his high-speed movements, the amount of them, and they're off the charts. I mean, he is constantly on the move, constantly threatening, and must be an absolute nightmare to deal with for a fullback at the moment. And he's full of confidence, which is great.
Hey, Coach. I'd like to talk about Audible's performance tonight. First off, how is he? And can you talk about, what a healthy Audible means to this team? He looked really sharp.
He's had a wonderful pre-season. After last year, a couple of injuries, really sort of fragmented his season. He came back in great shape, and he's worked tremendously hard in pre-season and been very, very influential. You could really see the appetite in his play and the hunger in his eyes again to do well and to impress. I thought he was terrific tonight, really was, and he does possess all of the qualities that you could ever want from a central midfield player. He's strong, he reads the game well, he's a great technician, his vision's very good. You can see that, as the game starts to unfold, he's looking more and more to break lines. I don't know how he is. I've seen that his shoulder's sore. We'll wait, and over the next 48 hours, I'm sure we get a little bit more news. But I'm fingers crossed that obviously it's on the minor end of the problems than it is, of course, at the other end, because he has been very, very good, and it'll be a big miss for us.
Gary, what do you make of the crowd today? Pretty engaged crowd. I think they were razzing Chanel most of the game. And it was it's kind of big and loud and rowdy as opposed to starting the first 8 on the road last year.
Oh, I mean, it couldn't be more different. The volume here, and I think we've spoken about this before, when the crowd's engaged and there's a decent fan base in the ground, the volume's terrific. It really is. And when the guys come out for their warm-up and before the game, there's a little tingle in everyone as they're getting prepared and they're getting set for the first whistle. I do genuinely think when I'd see and hear the crowd getting after opposing players, I think that's obviously their support for our guys. But I think it's the understanding and appreciation of what's going on and some of the, some of the tricks that are, being, I think, thrown out there from opposing players that other people call them the dark arts, but they're things that go on, in and around the ball, off the ball, that can be, quite difficult to deal with, and in some cases it can be, detrimental to players' health, and the fans are understanding that now, and we have some, obviously very effective and creative players, and I think that's being shown in their response to some of the poor challenges and some of the difficulties that our guys are having to experience.
Did you think Chanel went too far when he took out Annie on the sideline?
Honestly, I thought it was a cheap shot. I thought that was very cowardly. I did. It could have been very nasty, and I'm sure his response will be, well, he breaks beyond, and it. But it was very, very late, and it was unnecessarily heavy.
I think, Gary, you said the other day you didn't mind it being the high show, and then you got to go in today and play a good team for 75 minutes without him. I mean, it was encouraging to see what you saw without him and without TJ.
Very. Yeah, I couldn't be more pleased, as you can tell. The attacking group, if we look at the two wide players and Randall, we've already spoken about them at length, hugely influential. But I thought Teal's hold-up play, and for a lot of the time, because of Randall's DNA, he drops deeper, he wants to get on the ball. Teal was having to deal with two centre-backs, secure the ball, bring other players into the game. I thought he did a great job, I really did. And we probably saw on the right-hand side a little bit more inclusion, creation between Fafa and Shaq. You know, Daniel is obviously very, very capable of that, but I think Jacob was having such a terrific time out there. He was in so many good positions. Daniel became more of a supplier for Jacob than he was necessarily a creator for others on the field. So there are other dimensions there to be had, but I think it was almost Daniel saying, go on, Jacob, on you go, keep doing what you're doing, and I'll do my best to keep offering you these moments, if I can, to get at the fullback. So very, very pleased. I thought Alex came on and did a wonderful job for us. You know, let's not forget, we've got other guys in and around the group. Alex and Luke, who came on, have had wonderful pre-seasons. Very, very good. They've been in a good place. And it's important that I do my very utmost to try and make sure those guys stay in a good place, stay mentally engaged and sharp. And over the course of the next 4 or 5 games, we're probably going to need all of those bodies to make sure that we keep moving forward.
Was the plan all along to get Honey on late the way you did?
Yeah. I knew that Randall had a limited pre-season anyway. He pulled his hamstring, only minor, in the first game against New York. But he was fast-tracked through to where we saw him today. He managed to grab 60 minutes against Cincinnati, which was obviously our last pre-season game. And he's a very fit boy anyway. He keeps himself in good shape, and, you know, to get a good 75 minutes out of him, and more so the sharpness that he had in his game. You know, there's a big difference between being fit enough and also being sharp enough to affect the game, and being that, you know, that readiness for match day. And I thought he did a great job. So, but it was always going to be the case.
Coach, I know you talked already about the nice collective effort and how happy you are with that and some of the individual performances. I was just wondering about what you felt. I mean, it's not that Walker and Jack haven't played before together, but we know that this is Jack's position to take down. How do you see him playing tonight? And you know, we saw Walker's even scoring a goal. Were you pleased? Is there a lot to go yet for them, or how do you see him playing?
Yeah, listen, I'm pleased about a number of things. On the defensive front, I thought the back four and Joe were very sound. I thought the 2 central midfield players did a very good job of balancing off of the workload of the 2 wide players, who predominantly want to get forward. They want to stretch the game. And, you know, I've got to expect, as everyone else has to, that there are going to be times where if we're asking these guys to go and be effective in a positive fashion and really throw their energies at being creative, that there are going to be moments where the game breaks down and we look a little bit vulnerable going the other way. That is unfortunately, you know, a bit of a catch-22. So to have a solid back line, a reliable back line, all 4 of the guys in the back 4, I thought Shaq did a particularly good job out on this right-hand side against Magno and the boy Thiago, who are both really talented players. Very good individually. He showed real calibre out there with his defending, his techniques, and did a great job, for the most part, of really stifling anything they could create on their left-hand side. But the 2 centre-backs, their partnership has been formed over the course of time, of course. I think for Jack, his challenge is not whether he's good enough. I think we all know he's good enough. It's now, can he string together 6, 8, 10, 15, 25 games consistently at a level. You know, there's been a lot of promise in him as a player. He's had a very good pre-season, and it's about consistency now.
Hey, Coach, I just wanted to know, if you weren't before, are you now a fan of Johnny Cash?
Somebody asked me that the other day, and I didn't want to sound naive or rude, but I don't know all of his songs. Ring of Fire jumped out at me when somebody asked what you know, my favourite Johnny Cash song was. I actually heard one. The guys had Johnny Cash on in the locker room when I walked in. I don't remember the name of it, but it sounded great. He's a legend. I mean, I know that much. So,
It resulted in a fine result today.
what's that?
It helped with find result by wins.
Absolutely, and I do think that the little touch on the collar of the shirts is a wonderful touch. You know, very classy, and the shirts in general and the kit, personally, I thought looked fabulous.
We have time for one more question. Team, take us home.
Gary, they made a movie about him a few years ago. I'll have to watch it.
I haven't, but you're right, I should.
But I want to go back to, I think, the first question that Drake asked, and you mentioned that the first half you guys were kind of dominating the ball. The second half they started dominating the ball. Obviously, I think most people expect that second half is what your team is more comfortable with, and especially when Hani comes in. But what does it say about your team that you were so comfortable in two very different halves of the play, and you were able to score a goal in two extremely different styles, especially the one in the first half against a team that people weren't out possessing them last year. I know it's not quite last year's NYC FC team, but the way you guys did that was pretty impressive too.
Yeah, I mean, they're on their way to, you know, building and forming the sort of relationships that you will have seen out of their championship winning group. And no two ways, you can't lose so many influential players and, you know, expect to be at that same level, but they are a very strong organisation in general and produce some very good players, and obviously have, you know, a worldwide network to work for them and look for players and so on. What it says for us is that we're very capable of taking the game to teams and starting well. This is a very small sample size, of course, but to start off in this manner, with this attitude, and, you know, really lay a bit of a foundation in the first game is extremely pleasing for everyone. So a terrific start, first of all. There were, I thought, some good moments where we controlled good periods of the game with the ball, first half more so than second. And it was expected that they would find their way into the game because they have some good players, some talented individuals. And at that point in time, I think you can do one or two things. You can either get frustrated as a group and wonder why we can't do what we were doing, and you then end up, I think, unbalanced, you know, in a place mentally and physically where, you know, you're just not able to find any traction, and that can sometimes be, of course, extremely detrimental for the defending team. But we gathered ourselves, we showed good resilience, we limited opportunities, and then found a moment in the game, and it came obviously when Hani, you know, came into the game in the final 15 minutes, where, to all intents and purposes, the game was done at that point. At 2-0, I truly didn't ever feel until, obviously, Annabelle went over that that they were going to do enough. There wasn't anything within the game at that point that suggested that they were going to be able to put us under enough pressure to recover the game. So in many ways, the game was managed terrifically by the group.